Senator Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to add my compliments to the chairman for his opening statement, and just can't believe you're leaving the Senate in midlife like you are. Very disappointing.
I agree with that. Thank you for midlife.
From a South Carolina point of view, you're just getting started. One observation, the room is almost empty. Got a few reporters. Thank you for coming. General, I remember when all these rows were full with people carrying bags and everybody was hanging on every word about Afghanistan. I'm just here to say that the decision we're about to make as a nation regarding Afghanistan is probably the single most important decision we'll make in the 21st century in securing our homeland other than the Iranian nuclear program. I can't think of a more important decision for America to make than how we transition in Afghanistan, and there may not be a lot of interest in the room, but to the members of the committee, thank you. You've acquitted yourselves well. No BSA, no troops, right?
That's correct, Senator.
So to the Afghan people, if we don't have a bilateral security agreement, not one troop with my support will be left behind. We're not going to put our young men and women in that situation. The good news is most Afghans want us to stay, right?
That's correct, Senator.
Maybe what you're telling us, if we're smart and we end this well, we can construct a scenario where the Afghans will help defend America.
Well, Senator, if you look back at the nations that we helped in the 1990s, many of them are actually on the ground with us in Afghanistan today. I'd point out Georgia as one of the examples.
But what's in it for us is a fair proposition for us to be exploring. What's in it for us, to me, would be an Afghanistan willing to fight the terrorists and help defend our nation from attack. Do you agree with that?
I agree. A partnership with Afghanistan in the fight against terrorism is absolutely where we're trying to go.
If you want to help women in America, make sure al-Qaeda can't kill a bunch of us here on our homeland, right?
That's correct, Senator.
It's just not about Afghan women. It's about American women, about American men. So we got a historic opportunity to turn a country that's been isolated in history into an ally and can be a frontline defense against al-Qaeda. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that, Senator.
Okay, so the goal is to keep the enemy away from the homeland and to build partnerships. Isn't that the general goal in how to win the war on terrorism?
It is, Senator.
Would you agree that Afghanistan is the central front in that battle because this is where it all started?
I do, and particularly in South Asia, Senator.
Okay, so if you believe this is the place it all started and we can leave behind a scenario where it ends well, the question is the cost-benefit analysis. Before 9/11, on September the 10th, 2001, how many troops did we have in Afghanistan?
We didn't have any troops on the ground.
How many ambassadors did we have in Afghanistan?
We did not have an ambassador.
How much money did we give to Afghanistan?
We didn't give any, Senator.
So I've tried that. Didn't work. How much has 9/11 cost us in terms of dollars?
Billions of dollars, Senator.
A lot more than the presence in Afghanistan?
That's fair to say, Senator.
So if you looked at the cost to the country in terms of financial cost, going to the model of leave them alone, they'll leave us alone, did not work. To our folks in West Virginia, it cost us a lot more to ignore Afghanistan than it has to be involved. Now, the 6,000 lives plus lost in Afghanistan and Iraq are heartbreaking. But these were soldiers that signed up and were willing to defend the nation. 3,000 civilians died in the blink of an eye on the homeland. Do you believe that if we ignore the threats coming from that part of the world, that the next attack on the United States could be greater than it was on 9/11?
I absolutely believe there'll be another attack. Whether it be greater or not, I don't know, Senator. But
would you agree with me the capabilities that are beginning to be available to terrorist organizations are greater than they were before 9/11?
Yes, Senator.
Okay, so Karzai's an outlier. Let's just leave it at that, right? He happens to be the president, but he doesn't represent Afghanistan's view of what to do regarding the U.S.-Afghan relations. Is that a fair statement?
It is, Senator.
Okay. The Afghans don't see us as the Russians or the British occupiers because they could kill us all tomorrow if they wanted to, couldn't they? How many people are in Afghanistan?
25 to 30 million. Senator.
Okay. How many are there of us?
Right now, there are 33,000 Americans.
How long could 33,000 survive if 25 or 30 million saw us as an occupier?
It'd be a difficult circumstance to find yourself in, Senator.
Yeah, it would be. I wouldn't want to be there. So the point is, you got green on blue. That happens in every war. But I'm here to tell you, if they didn't want us, we wouldn't be there. And it offends me when people suggest that we're the British empire a long time ago of the Russians. We're not in the eyes of the Afghans. So you got two choices. One choice is to go back to the pre-9/11, nobody there, no money there. The cost of staying. How much would it cost the American taxpayer to maintain a 350,000 plus Afghan army? How much would it cost to maintain 10 to 12,000 troops? Compare the benefit we would achieve from that investment versus leaving, nobody left behind, and see where the smart play's at. Can you run us through that right quickly?
Senator, the cost of Afghan security forces at about 352,000 in 2015 would be $5 billion. Our coalition partners have committed to pay $1.3 billion of that. Afghanistan will pay approximately $500 million of that. So the cost of the United States would be somewhere in the order of $3 billion. We're still working the cost figures for our actual presence overall right now, but certainly far less than the cost that you've just outlined.
So you put that in one bucket, and the other bucket is the cost if we leave, and you're telling us the cost of leaving is far greater than staying under the configuration you've just indicated. Is that correct? That's
Absolutely.
Final thought. Is it fair to say that our national security interests are not going to be judged in history by the day we left Afghanistan, but by what we left behind?
Senator, I think it's how we leave, absolutely, not when we leave.
It's how we leave and what we leave behind, and you're here to tell us, as the commander of our forces in Afghanistan, if we're smart and we do this right, conditions-based withdrawal, we can leave behind a stable country that can help defend America's homeland, or we can leave behind a disaster that will haunt us for decades.
I believe that, Senator.
Senator Graham is recognized.
Thank you, sir. Detainees, I really appreciate the stand you took against the 65 detainees being released by President Karzai. We have a resolution in Congress condemning that action. Do you believe it would be helpful for the Congress to send a signal that we object to what President Karzai did?
I do, Senator, and I'd like to thank you for what you've been doing over the last several weeks to ensure we sent a very clear message to the Afghan government.
And let the Afghans know that economic aid will be cut off if they continue this. Could you send the committee a report on the status of to give our guys at 435 something to do? I'm sure they're bored out there. Well, I wanted just to shout out to 435. Thank you for all the hard work out there. A report on the status of detainees, third country nationals. Give the committee some indication of the problems we face between now and July with detainees, and so we can make informed decisions to help you. Could you do that?
Absolutely, Senator.
Okay. Finally, as to the war itself, this is an ideological struggle. Do you agree there's no nation state to conquer? When it comes to radical Islam, there's no capital to conquer. There's no Air Force to shoot down. There's no Navy to sink. We're in an ideological battle with radical Islamists, right?
I agree with that, Senator.
And when I say we, it's most of the Muslim world. It's not just us. Most of the Muslim world is in a battle with these guys.
And our coalition partners as well.
Absolutely. So what you're trying to tell us is that the best way to keep this war away from our homeland is to have sort of lines of defense throughout the world. And these lines of defense would be places like Afghanistan that had a stable government, stable improving economy, and security forces willing to fight the radicals. That's part of America's defense strategy. Do you agree with that?
I do, Senator. I mean, terrorists thrive in ungoverned spaces, and that's what we're trying to do in Afghanistan is ensure it's not an ungoverned space.
So I don't know when the war will end. Radical extremist movements are marginalized over time, would you agree, by better education, better economic opportunity in the areas they operate. The biggest blow really to the Taliban and the Al-Qaeda is girls going to school.
I agree with that, Senator.
And people making their own choices. And I know that's complicated and frustrating for us, but if we will invest in the people who are willing to fight the terrorists along our side, in their backyard, I think we would be smart. Now, Afghanistan, under Taliban control and 30 years of previous civil war, was a devastated nation. Is that fair to say?
It is fair to say.
What happened in 2001 when we a year later when we cleaned out the place, was a devastated society. Absolutely no infrastructure.
That's correct, Senator.
I remember going to Kabul, and there were just a very few lights. You go today, it's almost like Myrtle Beach, and I like Myrtle Beach. It's a very vibrant place. Lots of challenges, but there's two ways to look at Afghanistan. Where we started and where we are today. Would you agree with me, in many ways it's amazing they've come as far as they have?
Senator, I absolutely believe that, and I think if just a few years ago we would have described Afghanistan in 2014, I think very few people would have believed we would be where we are today.
I would be among those few. Now, there's two ways to look at this: what they haven't done and how far they've come and what they're capable of doing. I believe the capability of the Afghan people is fairly unlimited when it comes to reforming Afghanistan. It's just going to take time. Do you agree with that proposition?
I do. Given the opportunity, Senator, I've seen them accomplish an extraordinary amount in a short
And
time.
the key ingredient here is will and desire.
This is a clash of wills. There's no question.
And the Afghan people have the will and desire to move out of the darkness into the light. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely, Senator. It reflects in the popularity rate of the Taliban, where they're probably get somewhere between 11 and 15% at the highest in terms of the numbers of Afghan people who actually support the Taliban ideology.
How does the al-Qaeda poll?
We don't have an al-Qaeda poll, Senator,
like
but I
Congress,
suspect it would be
even below
much
that.
lower.
Yeah. So the bottom line here is that the ace in the hole for America is that most people in Afghanistan do not want to go back to the dark days of the Taliban. They want to go forward. They want a different world. It won't be like America. This is not Jeffersonian democracy, but it can be representative government. They can be a good ally. Don't you believe that?
I believe that, Senator.
Okay, so from the American people's point of view, I hope you understand that we're trying to build defenses abroad and let armies abroad do the fighting with minimal help from us to keep the enemy at bay from attacking us, because the goal of al-Qaeda is just not to control Afghanistan, is to drive us out of the region, right?
That's exactly the plan for
To
transition.
drive us out of the region and leave that part of the world in their hands, and the economic chaos that would create would be unimaginable. Do you agree with that?
I do, Senator.
From an economic perspective, the United States has a great interest in making sure that part of the world is stable.
I think if you look at the cost of 9/11, you can make that argument very easily.
Would you also agree that if you're wanting to deter the Iranians from acquiring a nuclear capability, if we abandon Afghanistan, that's the worst possible signal you could send to the Iranians about our resolve regarding national security matters?
I think it would have a destabilizing effect on the
And the
region.
Iranians would be one of the biggest winners of an unstable Afghanistan?
I believe so, Senator.
Thank you and all of those under your command for extraordinary service. You've done a great job. We're inside the 10-yard line. Do you believe that?
We are in the red zone, Senator.
We're in the red zone, and we can score if we don't call the wrong play.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.